I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delanie Fischer, and today I'm joined by Dr. Thema Bryant, renowned psychologist, author, professor, and minister. Dr. Thema integrates psychology, spirituality, and social justice through her work on healing trauma, creating healthy relationships, and reducing everyday stress. And you may have heard her recently on Oprah's podcast. No big deal. Today, we're discussing some of the concepts in her new book, Matters of the Heart, including how busyness can distract us from healing and living the way we truly want to be living. And we talk about how compulsive busyness is not just the stuff you get paid to do. You can keep yourself too busy with hobbies, extracurriculars, social events, etc. And we also differentiate the busyness that's optional versus the kind that is necessary, and how we can find community when we need support, when we are finding ourselves too busy and don't want to be. We also get into the tough situation that can arise when you do start healing and growing. What do you do if the people around you take those healthy changes as a personal judgment or attack on them? Dr. Thema brings up a great example of this when someone who quit smoking cigarettes in a family who all smoke, instead of being proud of her for an objective, healthy decision, they actually make her feel guilty about the decision instead. So this also raises the question, when can we become aware when we're the problematic one in a relationship dynamic? When are we the ones giving the proverbial guilt trip when someone quits smoking cigarettes? And if you've been struggling because you don't even know where to start when it comes to breaking damaging patterns or starting to make changes because you feel like you did not have healthy examples growing up and you're just unsure, what self-love or relationship should even look like. Dr. Thema also shares the difference between reclaiming the old version of yourself versus creating a new one, which will be relevant to you if that's the situation you're finding yourself in. All right, here is my chat with Dr. Thema. The word self love is thrown around a lot today, and I would love to hear what your definition of
Mm,
self love is and maybe how it differs to other narratives that you've heard around this concept.
yes. So self-love is having a compassion for ourselves that is demonstrated in action. So it is easy to say, I love myself, but when it is accurate, when it is authentic, it shows up in the ways that I treat myself. It shows up in my boundary setting. It shows up in the ways in which I rest. It shows up that I have a love, a care, a prioritizing of my wellness.
Anything that people say around this concept that you don't really resonate with? I feel like it gets
Yeah.
wrapped into like self care and self care products and, this
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
monetization of self love.
Yes. So it is important. Well, one of the immediate ones that I often hear from my community, whether a faith based community or African American community, is the misperception some people have that self love is selfish.
Hmm.
And so then it gets put as a negative that you are, if you're focused on yourself, then you're not taking care of the community or your family, and it is what I call like a false choice. And to have healthy relationships, a healthy sense of connection and responsibility to others should not be built on self neglect, self abandonment, self erasure. So, loving ourselves uh, is an important value, even for in our independence, but also in our interrelationship and interconnection. When you mention self care, when people think that the only ways I can take care of myself are with expensive things, then we've missed the mark. There are ways I can take care of myself that are free. So, having healthy relationships is a form of self care. Speaking up for myself is a form of self care. One of the important things for us to remember is that both self-care and community care are essential. So what I do for myself, but also that we show up for each other. And that's in a personal way, but also advocating for each other. So the common example that's given is if you have a single mother of three and you're just telling her that she should take care of herself, that's insufficient. You know, if she doesn't have a livable wage, if she doesn't have safe housing, if she doesn't have healthy childcare, then there are things we need to advocate for. So some people will say, I'm not into self care, I'm for community care. And I think that's another false choice.
Mm.
That while we are advocating for each other to have like policies and all of these things in place, that it is important for that same single mother to be able to rest, to be able to have nutritious food, for her to have healthy relationships, for her to be able to journal or listen to music or listen to podcasts. So there are ways that we can feed ourselves, nourish our spirits, which are really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can see the way that community care and self-care are definitely interconnected, especially like you mentioned, somebody in a position where they're just trying to survive the day. They'd
Mhm.
love to have time
Yeah,
or resources to care for
yeah.
themselves, and that's where I guess the community care
Mhm.
being so important for self-care comes in. And
Right.
it seems like reconnecting with ourselves, healing ourselves can often be dismissed as something that isn't as important as other things, right? Work is
Mhm.
important,
Mm,
external accolades are important, but
right.
this seems like something that can wait or maybe even is seen as frivolous sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Why is it so important to do this work to heal ourselves, heal past traumas, and
Mhm.
understand what our true desires are?
Yeah, it is so important to know that neglecting yourself and staying busy all the time, running ourselves in the hole and being burned out, is not good for our physical or our mental health and does not allow us to show up in a healthy way in our relationships. And so our stress level affects the different systems of the body, and eventually the body will shut down. When we are stressed out, we're not able to focus or concentrate or make good decisions. When we're in a state of panic, the things that we choose are often not the best because we're not in a settled place, in a grounded place ourselves. And we also want to consider the different roles that we have. So, for example, around gender, that girls and women are the ones that are often given the message that you are to be the caretakers for other people and you should have no needs yourself. And it's important to push back against that messaging that says to be a good daughter, to be a good sister, to be a good wife means that you take care of everyone's needs and your own needs are left unmet. So it is really essential for us to have mutual care and reciprocity that as we pour out, that also there are people in our lives that pour into us as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned this the busyness that can happen from your experience. Why do we collectively keep ourselves so busy? What is that busyness distracting us from? And is
Yeah.
it killing us? Is busyness
Mhm.
truly killing us?
So the messages we get from society are that we are supposed to be perpetually chasing significance and perpetually chasing money.
Yeah.
And so if I want to be significant and I want to be wealthy, the false narrative is that I need to be working all the time to build up other people's institutions, to produce for other people. And so, then we'll say it's like, I want to be booked and busy, and you need to lean in and you need to grind. And if you don't have multiple streams of income and you have a hobby that you have not figured out how to monetize, then you're wasting your time. So it is to perpetually extract labor from certain people, while often those who are wealthy are working much less. And so that messaging gets baked in very early that to be busy means that you are significant, that you are important, that you are valuable. And so it is a shifting, really, if you go into other cultures where there is a different pace of life,
Yeah.
then we can value our health, we can value longevity, we can value sustainability, we can value connections. And so there can be a part of it, which is like the societal messages. But another part of it, which you alluded to when you said, what are we distracting ourselves from? When people have experienced stress and trauma, often instead of taking time to heal, we try to distract ourselves by keeping so busy that I don't have time to think about it. So I'm running from my memories. So for some of us, sitting still or mindfulness or journaling is the opposite of what we feel equipped to do. Because some people feel like if I finally actually think about the things I've been through, it would overwhelm me. And then I'd end up in a depressed hole and I couldn't pull myself out of it. So I just have to keep moving. And so it is the illusion that it's not bothering me because I'm busy, but there is one, something called high functioning depression. And then two, our despair can show up in ways that we're not aware of. So when I haven't really healed my heart, it can show up in my harsh parenting style.
Mm.
It can show up in addiction. It can show up in insomnia. It can show up in a compromised immune system. It can show up in panic attacks. So it's there even when we are booked and busy.
Yes. Oh gosh. I mean, that resonates with me a lot. I caught myself in this overworking pattern, and I remember telling myself, I'm
Mhm,
just going to keep myself so busy
mhm,
that I don't even have to feel these feelings, right? I'm
mhm.
just going to distract myself at all
Right.
costs. And of
Yeah.
course, that leads to burnout and all of those
Mhm,
things. And there was part of me that was aware of it, part of me that wasn't.
mhm,
Years
mhm.
later, I started to try to kind of heal, like, what am I running from and all of
Yeah.
that. And I noticed this kind of organic result of needing or wanting to accomplish less. Like, I didn't have that same drive as I started
Mhm,
healing myself. Do you find that that is kind of a natural result of healing trauma and being able to sit with yourself? Or can it even be the opposite for some people where they want to work more or,
mhm.
anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, it can go both ways. One, if what is driving me is like running from the past or seeking significance, once I heal my heart, then I won't have that same panicked urgency. So I may still have things I enjoy, but it's not in a place of desperation, and there isn't that frantic piece to it. There's a life coach in LA, Shannon Yvette, and she has this quote which says, I don't want to be driven, I want to be called. And, just when I'm operating in that place of like driven, it's like, oh, pick me, choose me, versus like, oh, this is something that calls to me. This is something that
Mm.
speaks to me. This is something that fulfills me from like a settled place, from a healed place. And then the way it could go in the reverse is when people weren't coping with busyness, but instead were in a deep place of depression where they felt stuck. So
Mm.
some people feel immobilized. They may feel hopeless or helpless. They may feel insecure. And then as they heal, that esteem can grow and their energy can grow. And now, like, they're ready to get into life.
Yes. And let's say that somebody has done a lot of that kind of inner work on themselves. They've maybe gone to therapy, they've read the books, and they have truly adjusted their lifestyle to be less busy within their control, but they
Mhm,
recognize they're stuck in these systems that are beyond them, the capitalistic system, other oppressive systems. And
mhm.
how do you reconcile that where I don't want to be this busy, but I
Yeah.
also have to pay my bills?
Yeah, I think a part of it can be determining the quality of life I want, which is not limited to how much is my check, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, I have some flexibility with my work as a professor at university. There's some, like if my child was going to have a recital in the middle of the day, I could likely attend it. Not everybody can do that, right?
Yeah.
So, I've had offers that would require basically like 8 a.m. to, I'm going to say, 7 p.m., 5 days a week. Now, it would pay more than I currently make, but I had to say to myself, what is my time worth to me,
Mhm.
right? If it's just make as much as you want, then I would have gone for it. But my time and the quality of my day is more important to me. So I think some of us have to make some hard decisions, because if you just make the choice based on what's going to give you the most amount of money, uh, you can end up in a very unfulfilled place. Uh,
Right.
so, these are things for us to consider. Another thing that people do is highlight, we say like long suffering or endurance, sometimes in a place that does not feed their spirit. So uh, we sometimes don't want to let go of what's familiar. So you may be on a job that is very toxic, but you're like, I have to keep it so I can pay my bills. Meanwhile, there are other jobs that no, is any place perfect? No, wherever human beings are, there are going to be some things, but as we heal, our idea of what is acceptable or unacceptable changes.
Mhm.
I was talking to a woman who was complaining about her job, and I said to her, have you considered at least looking, right? Looking to see what else is out there.
Right.
And she says, well, no, this word only, I only have 10 more years till retirement.
Oh,
A decade, right?
yeah.
A decade and is convinced like that I don't have another choice.
Mm.
So um I would encourage us to uh not allow the system to lie to us about our options. And I understand that, not everyone has the same level of options. And I also am aware sometimes we hold on to toxic things because we believe that's all we can have.
Right. I know that I personally used to be in the mindset of, okay, how can I make as much money as possible? Because that's what I need in order to, afford all of these things that are meant for a good, good
Mhm.
lifestyle in
Yeah.
quotations, right? And
Hmm.
then when I realized what if I went the opposite way? Like how little do I need to make
Hmm.
in order to have spaciousness in my life and then forego these things I'm spending money on that I don't actually care about. And
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
I'm at the other end of the spectrum and I'm so much happier.
Yes.
It doesn't look as shiny maybe on the
Hmm.
outside in a lot of ways, but wow,
Hmm.
it feels way better on the
Yeah.
inside and shifting from kind of meaningless work in some
Hmm.
areas to more meaningful work. And I love that, yeah, what you said, that, these things can kind of weigh differently to us. It's not all about
Right.
the paycheck.
Yeah.
What about the person who might be tuning into this thinking, well, I think I work a pretty normal amount. I don't think I have
Mhm.
an issue with busyness. But then if you looked a little closer, you
Yeah.
see that they keep themselves very busy with extracurriculars and
Yeah.
activities and hobbies and
Yeah.
social events. And there's not much time for rest or reflection.
Mhm.
Can you also get too busy with those things, keeping
Right.
yourself at bay in some way?
Yeah. So the busyness is not just things you are paid for. You have people who are retired or unemployed who are very, very busy. And so I would encourage people to explore a different pace, a slower pace where you can be comfortable with you. Now, of course, some of the things we're doing are nourishing us, right? So I'm not saying eliminate all of it, But if I am perpetually on the go, to just experiment with some stillness. Now, your stillness may be much less than somebody else's, at least initially. So, for example, if someone is never used to being still, I wouldn't recommend they go on like a silent retreat for 7
Right.
days, right? That would
Too
be like
much.
torture.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, with a providing therapy to someone who's like super anxious and has to talk continuously, for me to just take 2 or 3 minutes and do a guided meditation with them is like plenty, right?
Yeah.
Or another example is, if I have someone who, doesn't go to bed usually till like midnight or 1. I wouldn't say starting tonight, go to bed at 9:30, right? They're just like going to be laying there. So in therapy, we tell people or we help people to set a goal that is a stretch, but that it's reachable. Sometimes we make the goal so drastic from where we are that we're not able to meet it and then we give up and then we're frantic or condemning ourselves. uh, and I say that because those of you who are listening who are super busy, you know uh, when we're talking about spaciousness, it doesn't have to mean the whole weekend you quote unquote do nothing.
Right.
Before you start running your errands or going to your volunteering, can you sit and just play some soft music and allow that to be? Could you take a bubble bath without watching TV or on your phone? Could you just sit?
Mhm.
So, just giving ourselves breathing room.
Instead of going out 7 nights a week, it's 6
Mhm.
or 6 and a
Yeah,
half. Maybe you
right.
leave a little early, right?
Yeah,
Like, I love those, those doable
yeah,
steps. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have
right.
to transform yourself into a
Mhm.
completely different person overnight.
Yeah,
You mentioned a very powerful question that seems like it could really help, with somebody who's considering, like, am I too busy? Am I avoiding something? How are you in the middle of the night by yourself? Oh, that one was really freaking good. A question like that, what can that show us about the
right.
relationship with ourselves and maybe busyness?
Yeah, because sometimes not only do we uh, not tell other people the truth when they're like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "I'm fine, I'm blessed, I'm good."
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not even what I'm saying to them. Sometimes we're saying that to ourselves. So if I convince myself that all is well, even when it's not, uh, I can stay busy enough where that feels true. And on the outside, it looks true, right? So if I said, take a video of yourself at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, many people are on, right? So
Yeah.
it's like I'm either around people or I'm being productive or I'm working or whatever it is I'm doing can look very much like I'm in a good place. Uh, and I brought up earlier, like high functioning depression. Some people are able to do the work, because they have to or they were raised to kind of push through it. But once that work day ends, that's when the despair shows up, the loneliness shows up, the grief shows up, the frustration and unfulfillment show up. So then, that can look like hours with the TV watching me, right? Like we're not even really watching, it's
Mm.
watching us, or
Yeah.
the emotional eating, right? I'm eating because I feel empty, like it's beyond hunger, right? I'm just binge eating,
Mm.
or I'm drinking more, or I'm laying there awake for, hours on my phone, or
Right.
I'm actually, in tears, curled up in my bed.
Yeah. And so let's say that somebody is resonating with this where I realize that when I have downtime,
Right.
I'm not okay. I'm really sad about it.
Yeah.
What could somebody start to do to maybe, learn a little bit more about why that
Mhm.
is and maybe a
Mhm.
different way of being?
Right. So, the first breakthrough I would say is telling yourself the truth, right? That I am sad, I am disappointed, I am lonely, and sometimes people can feel guilty about that if some other things in their life are going well. So then it's like the I
Mm,
should, right? I should be happy, I should be grateful,
right.
and so we release the shoulds and stand in truth. And we also recognize you can feel more than one thing at the same time. So I might be grateful that I have this good position, but also drained because the people are full of drama and they're messy and they're, all kinds of other things. Or, it takes up all my time. So now I'm exhausted. Uh,
Right.
so I tell myself the truth. And then, as you were naming, getting at the root of it, right? What has created this for me, or what's the source of that for me? Can I remember a time when I felt peace, or when I felt good about the state of my life? And what was happening then that's not happening now? Or maybe it's the same things, but those things just don't fulfill me anymore. And so as
Yeah.
we explore them, journaling is a great activity for people who don't want to write, doing the recording on your phone and just talking it out, actually taking the step of seeking therapy, talking to a mental health professional. And I even say, as like a small step, which can be a big step, is giving your friends and or family an honest answer. Right.
Mm,
So now I've told myself the truth. Is there anyone in my circle that I can dare to speak my truth to? That, how am I doing? I'm actually pretty stressed.
yeah. And I love the powerful questions that you encourage people to ask themselves to kind of help them uncover things. When have you felt loved? What parts of yourself do you miss? These things that can kind
Yeah.
of get us back to this state of being, I guess, before certain traumas happen, before,
Mhm.
societal expectations. What about the people though that can't remember being any different and it wasn't
Mhm.
modeled for them in any way? Are
Yeah.
there different questions they have to ask if they don't even
Yeah.
know that they're in this situation, they don't have that
Yeah.
awareness at all.
Yes. So uh, I want to say to people, instead of reclaiming your former self, for many people, it's creating a new self, right? If you grew up
Mm,
in an environment where it wasn't safe or it wasn't encouraged, you grew up basically in survival mode or in combat mode, um, and have equated that with your identity, right? So if someone were to say, why are you being so harsh? They may say, that's just my personality. Well, your environment made it such that you had to develop a fight, right? You had to develop your armor. Uh, and the quote I like to say is, the ways you survived may not be the ways you want to live, right? So
mm,
that allowed you to navigate that space, that house, that neighborhood, that school. But you're not there anymore. And you're also not a child anymore. So you can make some other choices. So I can ask myself, um, what is the feedback I've gotten consistently from different people about me,
mm.
right? And to know that not all feedback is someone being a hater or being jealous, right? Some people
Right,
actually trying to help us,
right.
right?
Yeah, not all criticism is bad,
Yes,
right,
yes,
Yes.
yeah. So, what have people consistently said, or like I've, gotten it from multiple sources? What are the ways that my interaction style has protected me and has helped me? And what are the ways that it perhaps has sabotaged me, or I call it blocking our blessings, right? Some people
Yeah.
want relationships, whether friendship or romantic, but the ways in which they engage with people don't allow those connections to flourish. So now, like, I have a desire and I'm blocking my own desire. So uh, to risk showing up differently so that I can get different results. Now, often for people that will feel awkward or fake, right? And it only feels awkward or fake because you're not used to it. And it is outlasting that awkward feeling while I am developing a new way of being until it feels more like I'm at home with it.
Right. This reminds me of something that you said, that problematic people will approach anybody, but it's a matter of how long you entertain them. Oh, that was another one
Yeah.
that really hit me. And I remember, I can see the ways that if like the things that I was attracted to when I was
Yeah.
younger, people
Mhm,
who are emotionally unavailable. And then the people that were present, I just didn't have a whole lot of interest in them. And
mhm.
of course, that shifted. If I met
Yeah.
somebody today, I'm happily married, but if I met
Yeah, yeah,
somebody and I
yeah.
was single, I wouldn't
Mhm.
even I would be completely turned off by
Yeah,
emotional unavailability now, but that
yeah.
was a long process.
Mhm,
So, why is it that when we kind of do this inner work, we end up
mhm.
really being attracted to different things or
Right.
wanting different
Yeah,
people?
yeah.
Anything that you want to share around that concept?
Sure. Our tastes change because, when I am attracted to emotionally unavailable people, often I am also emotionally unavailable. So I keep picking people that I have to chase who don't show up for me because I am at my core afraid of really being seen and known uh, and tuned into. That I feel like if people really see me, they would reject me. Or if they really saw me, they would see what's wrong with me. And
Mm,
so once I am more healed and can sit with and see myself, then that is what I desire to genuinely be known. And I love myself enough that if people don't love and honor me, then it feels intolerable to me, right? It's just
yeah,
like not acceptable.
right.
So, yeah, how I feel about myself will show up in what I expect and accept from others.
So interesting. And somebody might be aware that they're caught in this pattern of dating the
Mhm,
same type of person over and over, but it's just kind of coming up as they have the ick and they're just genuinely, maybe sexually attracted to the
mhm,
people who are harder to get.
mhm.
What would you share with that person who's just how do I force myself to be attracted to somebody who's going to treat me well if I'm not,
Right. Yeah.
you
I
know?
would say take a break,
Yeah.
right? Many times, uh, we're so busy in pursuit of looking on the social media account of texting and figuring out like how to try to seduce somebody or how to get somebody to look your way, that it doesn't give us an opportunity to notice what it has cost us. Because the more I engage in that and it's not reciprocated, the more it damages my self esteem. So, like,
Mm,
I don't feel good about myself. Therefore, if someone is into me, something must be wrong with them. Right.
mm,
And so I need some time to be still. And I would say to uh, reject the lie that people who would be kind to you are automatically unattractive and, not appealing.
yeah.
Right? And I would say you should not force yourself to be attracted to someone you don't want because that's a mistreatment of the person. And people have done that,
Mm,
right?
yeah, good
Um,
point.
then it's like, oh, well, this person makes a good amount of money or this person is reliable, but I don't really care for them. That's going to show up. I'm going to eventually mistreat them. So they deserve better than someone who does not see them as the gift they are.
Mm. Yeah, very good points.
Yeah.
Um, I'm thinking of somebody who might be of the mindset, well, isn't it good that some people keep themselves busy at all costs? It's fine, whether they have a drinking problem or drug problem, whatever helps them operate at the level of maybe a CEO, right? Like people think that obsession and sacrifice of health and
Mhm.
relationships is actually maybe, I don't know, it's kind of glorified as
Mhm.
they're being selfless, because without people like that are kind of obsessed, maybe they wouldn't employ these hundreds of other people at a company, or that, this type of thing. How do you feel about that kind of narrative that,
Mhm.
that might be a positive thing for
Right,
the
right.
world, right?
Yeah. I would encourage them to meet more people because there are people who are excellent, who are more humane and balanced. So the narrative is all the greats um, neglect their relationships, neglect their health because they're great.
Mm,
And there are people who are excellent CEOs who, yes, they may work more than a 9 to 5, but show up still with some balance and boundaries in their life. It is
right.
possible.
I'm curious to know what you've discovered about yourself through writing your books, or what you've had to kind of face with your own healing. If anything that you're willing to share about that.
Sure. Well, a big piece that's kind of in the aftermath of the book or the actual writing process, I dedicated the book to my mom. And then last year, while we were in the production, because the book came out this year in February, the end of last year, my mom died of breast
Mm.
cancer.
Oh, wow.
So it made it, I think, even more urgent to me, the message of the book, because my mother's one of those people who like love fiercely and love unconditionally and
Mm.
um, really believed in my brother and I. And I know what a difference it made to have that. Um, while she also, struggled with various things, including anxiety and panic attacks. Um, but the gift, I would say, and my gratitude for having her as a mother kind of, I think, intensifies my mission of wanting people to live well and to treat each other well, right? People say like tomorrow's not promised, but which is another thing about the busyness, like the sacredness of time.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I want to do with the time I have? And yes, purpose and goals and all of that is can be important, but a big part of it also, my mother used to say, is it does matter how you treat people, right? It does matter, and so I think I you feel that in a very fresh way.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that about your mom. You brought up this concept of time, and it is limited, and you see people filling their time with a lot of obligations, or
Mhm.
spending time with people they don't actually want to spend time with. Why? And the, inverse of that is they're not spending the most amount
Mhm.
of time with the people they really want to be with.
Right.
Um how do we start to kind of figure out what feels like an obligation?
Mhm.
And of course some obligations are important, right? but
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
the things that maybe we can let go of, or even the relationships we can let go of, so we have more time for the
Mhm.
people that we want to be with and the things that we really want to do.
Right.
What's the start of that process? What can that look like
Yeah.
for someone?
Yeah. So I think, a part of it is there's this quote by Howard Thurman where he says, do the thing that actually makes you come alive because far too few of us are actually alive. Right?
Yeah.
So then it's about like what awakens me, what inspires me, what motivates me, what fills me, what allows me to use gifts or knowledge I have that when I'm in that flow, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be, or this is what I'm good at, or this is what nourishes me instead of just the chasing. So
Right.
to say, I want to be alive,
Right.
right? And then in terms of relationships, uh, sometimes we are holding on to relationships out of loyalty that are no longer aligned, right? Are not, maybe have never been
Yeah.
really gratifying or fulfilling. And, I would say for those who are like, I don't want to just cut people off, that's fine. I can also reduce the time, right?
Right.
So if there's someone who I don't actually enjoy spending time with, but like every Saturday we spend all day together, I can like reclaim that time. And not to
Yeah.
say like I'm not your friend anymore, but there's some other things I want to do with my Saturdays. So maybe instead of every Saturday, I'll do once a month, right?
Yeah.
Or even some people with their family, if your family is not a nourishing place, like, do you have to spend every holiday there for the whole day? Or maybe
Right.
I'll come for dessert and then leave. Or, so we
Right.
can pick and choose, uh, what are the things I want to modify or reduce the time? What are some things that just really need to go? And then what are the things and the people I want to hold on to?
Yes. What about the person who's becoming aware that they might be the only one in their group of people, whether that's friends, family, a mixture with a certain set of values that maybe aren't shared with that group. And they're feeling really lonely about that. I would imagine finding your community is very important. But how do you stay confident in what you really want when
Mhm.
everyone around you feels the
Right.
opposite? How do you stay firm in that?
Right. This is so important to find people who reflect where you are and where you want to be in life, um, and people who will respect your goals and dreams. An
Right.
example that comes to mind is a young woman who decided she didn't want to smoke anymore, and her whole family smokes. Instead of just like feeling neutral about it or being happy for her, they got angry because
Mm,
her presence and not smoking, even though she didn't say anything, they took it as a judgment. And so then it
yes.
became this whole like family pressure where either like, either you're going to start smoking again or they're going to be mad or you got to step away. So I would say, pay attention to how people respond to, we can call it your growth, your healing, your decisions about what feels good to you.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh gosh, yeah, that stuff is hard because
yeah.
I think it can go it can become something where when you start feeling good with what you choose to do,
Mhm.
it becomes almost intolerable to feel
Yeah,
bad even for 30
right.
minutes or
Mm.
whatever, right? And it feels like maybe I just don't wanna go back there ever
Mm.
to that place where
Yeah,
people aren't really valuing the things
right.
that make me feel healthy, and
Yeah.
that's really tough finding that balance. We've talked about that concept of problematic people will approach everybody and, all of that. But how can we start to figure out when we're the problematic one? And
Mhm.
everybody's got
Yeah,
traits that need some
right.
work, like the family that's making you feel guilty
Mhm.
for quitting smoking which is objectively healthy.
Yeah,
When can you start to realize, wait a minute, I should not be guilt tripping this person for making this
right.
decision?
Yeah,
How do we do
yeah.
that?
Yes, it's so important. Um, Perspective taking is like, I see it the way I see it. And let me try to step outside of myself to say, like, what are some other options? What would be another way to think about this? Like, if I didn't want to go off on my niece about her smoking, what might I say instead? Or maybe say
Right,
nothing, right?
right.
So instead of, often we're reactive, impulsive, we're not thinking it through. So I like to say, give yourself sacred pause, pause before I respond and think through, what do I want to say or do in this moment and why? And are there any other options? To even having that moment to consider, like, I would even say it like at a meeting, is what I'm about to say like necessary or helpful? Like,
Yeah.
and helpful for who? Right?
I know that for me, when I when I started actually looking at the traits that I don't want to have anymore and the people I want to spend time with, I thought that this type of work would actually protect me from future things. I don't know. I thought that maybe I'd be able to spot things earlier
Mhm,
that were
mhm,
not going to be good for me, but things still
mhm,
happen without, beyond my control. But it feels like I can kind of bounce back a little differently, or I just trust myself and
mhm.
I can be on my own. Like
Yeah.
if everything falls away, that I know that I kind of got myself.
You can often see things sooner or more clearly,
Yeah.
and but it also can be less devastating when I have clarity about myself, right? So I
Right.
may be, bothered or even upset that they said this thing, but I can also think back to like if they had said that same thing a year or two ago, like I would have been in a really deep place about it.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
noticing my recovery, noticing my response, um, and the sting becomes less than it does when I actually am looking for them to define me or for them to validate me.
Right. And I know you've also said that, a breakup, let's say just in the concept of a breakup, that can be a win for both people.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, anything that you want to share about why that is.
right. Yeah. So, some relationships are really for a season. And sometimes we outlast the season and are still trying to hold on to it. Or if we're honest, some relationships should have never started to begin with.
Yeah.
We can be better on the other side, the lessons learned. And I would say, to get to your earlier point, not just my lessons being observations of the other person, but what did I learn about me?
Yeah.
Right. And that's, a green or a red flag. If when people talk about their exes, they're like, they were all crazy, da 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 da, like it's all this bad talking of people and no ownership of themselves, right? So I
Right.
want to think about either what made that attractive to me, how, if at all, did I contribute to the dynamic, what I would like to have done differently, and if I was confronted with such a situation in this relationship, how I might respond to it differently, so that uh, I, I, I call it pulling the wisdom out of the wounds,
Love
right?
that. Yes. Yes.
It hurt, and it's like, okay, now I know some things. Like, yeah, I would not have chosen to learn them in that way, but I know some things now as a result of having come through that.
Yes, and I love what you said about when you are grieving a relationship, a loss of a relationship, that you're not really grieving the relationship, but the idea of what you thought it would be or it
Yes.
could be.
Yeah.
And because if something works, maybe you're not really grieving it, right?
Mhm.
Because you're able to stay together.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to say about that?
So sometimes we fall in love with potential,
Right.
of who this person could be, or who we're hoping they're going to become. And that can be a setup for disappointment for you and frustration for the person. And so I release my fantasy about who this person was going to be or what this relationship was going to be so that I can see the truth of what it is with more clarity, to be able to see, what are the things that pull me here and tie me here, and, perhaps even were nourishing or are nourishing, and what are the things in this situation that are breaking my heart, breaking my spirit, breaking my confidence, um, or just not meeting different aspects of me. We are
Yeah.
multi-layered beings, so you may say, like, well, this part is important and this part was optional. And then you get in the relationship and it's like, oh, this thing I thought was optional, I actually need it. So
Mhm.
it helps me to clarify what I'm actually looking for and what I desire.
Right. This idea of kind of falling in love with potential. Could be the cutoff point? Like, for example, some people do make changes in a relationship and they do reach this potential you're hoping that they reach. And some people might not have that capacity. How do
Mhm.
you know the difference between this somebody who is maybe going to make some changes and somebody who isn't?
Yeah. I would say, one distinction is around age, right?
Mm.
Like, if we're both 19, early 20s, and like we're in a state of becoming,
Right.
then yeah, it just makes more sense that of like, well, we both had potential, we both had dreams, and we got together like with these dreams, and we're working toward our dreams. Uh, when you get older, then like some of your dreams have come true. Now it's not just like a fantasy of one day. It's like I'm living some things so that I want to be with people who have actually manifested some of these dreams. It shouldn't still be like this far off thing.
Right.
Like the older I get, the closer I need to be to like having realized or have some results or some fruit of my efforts. Um, and then in terms of like people changing, uh, it's important that when they say, the best apology is change behavior,
Oh,
right? So like
yeah.
anyone could say like, I'm sorry, oops, I'm gonna do better. But do you actually see that, right? Do you see the transformation or is your hope in their words?
Really looking at that action. Action over words over
Yeah,
time is
yeah,
really a great indicator.
yeah.
Dr. Tama, this was so fantastic.
I enjoyed it. Yes,
Oh,
great
so
question.
good. Let's say that somebody's gonna read all your books.
Mhm.
What would you say you would have them start with between Homecoming, Matters of the Heart, Reclaim Yourself?
Right.
What order should we
Yes.
go in here with the
Yeah. Homecoming is to heal from stress and trauma. And so if you're in a place of wanting to address stress and trauma, I would go with that one. Uh, Matters of the Heart is more about healing your relationships. So, improving your sense of yourself and your ability to relate to others, family, friends, and romance, as well as coworkers to a certain extent. So you can go in either order, but usually if the trauma is very central for you, you probably want to do that one first.
Okay, beautiful. And then lastly, is there anything that you would like to leave people with about this type of work? And then where can people find you?
Yes. I love this work, and I want to say, in addition to therapy, that the arts and spirituality can also be great pathways for our healing. And so, to explore in arts, dance, music, poetry, for your spirituality, doing the things that nourish you on a spiritual level, so that our healing is holistic. So my website is drthema.com, drthema.com. My podcast is called The Homecoming Podcast. It's on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. My books are available everywhere books are sold. And if, reading is not big on your enjoyment list, there is the audio version. So you can listen to both Homecoming and Matters of the Heart are available in audio.
All right, everybody. I just need to give a moment of silence for all the awesome quotes and questions that were shared in this episode. There it is, the moment of silence. Everything from your hope and their words aren't enough when you find yourself in love with someone's potential to all the questions that Dr. Tama brought up of, what do you feel like when it's the middle of the night and you're by yourself? What feelings come up? Those are things that can really help you figure out maybe where to start with your healing. To busyness is not just a thing you're paid for. Also, once you have a healed heart, you may find that you don't pursue things with desperate urgency, and you find that you don't want to be driven, you want to be called instead. Whew! So feel free to munch on those. That should hopefully keep you full for the day, and I will talk to you soon. So glad you tuned into Self-Helpless. If you felt supported by this or past episodes, there are a couple ways you can help the show. Feel free to share it with a friend who may enjoy the variety of discussions we have here. Also, you can become a monthly or annual supporter of the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/selfhelpless. That's where you can pitch and vote on topics, submit questions for special guests, or be a silent supporter and not participate in any of that. 100% of Patreon and merch proceeds go directly to operating expenses that not only keep the show going through thick and thin, but also keeps it accessible to all with minimal ads. If you want to show a little extra lovin', you can leave an Apple Podcast review or send an email to share how Self-Helpless has impacted you. All of this info and more goodies can be found at selfhelplesspodcast.com. All right, love you big time, and thank you so much.